of check things out and make sure to plug some different things going on in the community and see what's going on. That made me smile. I work at Extended Visitor Center, and you see parades of kids going to Legoland. So I wave at them and to see who will wave back at me and whatnot. Yeah, so that made me really smile. There were some twins the other day. You're a twin. I am. You're a twin.
I'm Susan Colbert. I'm with Legal Aid of Southeast and Central Ohio. And I'm a resident of the Near East Side. I live on Mount Vernon Avenue. And I serve on PAC's board. The one thing that made me smile today, I had the pleasure before I came here to attend, I think they had a summer kickoff festival at the library. And the kids were so excited and good felt, so they kind of like got me in the summer spirit, you know, so yeah, I was excited about that. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having us.
I'm James Mackey. I am also from Legal Aid. I do also actually live in the neighborhood just a couple blocks away. And something that made me smile this week is that the house across the street from me has been vacant and boarded up for years, and this week they plan to start planning.
Hi everyone, my name is Deborah Sauer and I am a PhD student at Ohio State. I don't live too far from here, just 5 minutes down the road. But something that made me smile this week was being able to go home to Virginia to see my little cousin graduate from high school.
Right. Good evening, everyone. Dana Dorsey, Program Manager with Partners Achieving Community Transformation, or PAC. It's something that made me smile. I had my dog Stokely at the office yesterday, so that was nice for me and Miss Cassandra. He's there periodically, so come by.
I'm Bob Rice, and I was just District 1 Commissioner on NEAC. And what made me smile this weekend was I drove to Shelbyville, Tennessee, which is where my mother was born and raised. And about 5 generations before she was born, the family established a chapel across the country. So they couldn't get into Shelbyville to do church services. And the first Sunday in June, we mowed the cemetery. We decorated the graves with flowers we picked from fields across the farm, and you could foot and see relatives.
My name is Maurice Wells. I'm the District 2 Commissioner. Something that made me smile this week. My middle daughter, she does soccer. She does club soccer. They do a ton of practices year round. And they had a volunteer or volunteer practice yesterday, and surprisingly enough, my daughter wanted to go. I usually have to pull a team to get her to go to practice, but she wanted to go on her own. So that made me smile.
Hello everyone, I'm Nathan Harris, District 1 Commissioner, Chair of the Commission, IT person as well. Something that made me smile this week, is that what the problem was? Something that made me smile this week. I like to be outside and actually no, I was picking up like 16 bags of rocks from Lowe's, and an old man, bad back came walking and was like, you have something cut out for yourself. I remember when I used to work on my garden at home, if I had a good bag, I would definitely help you. And I said one day I would be like you, except about the bad bag. But no, that comment had made me smile this week.
Perfect. While we are waiting to get the presentation up for our guest presenters, does anyone have any community events they would like to share?
OSU's Healthy Community Day is happening this Saturday from 9 a.m. to noon. There will be music, fun, food, and free health screenings. And that will be at Outpatient East at Taylor and Leonard.
You said this Saturday morning?
Yep, this Saturday morning.
Inside or out?
Outside. Well, the health screenings are inside and then like mobile coaches, but all the fun is outside. And they have a tent. There's like a big it always is.
Well, Hot Times Festival that got kicked off the, health department site is now back this year, and we're very excited about that. And that will be, the weekend after Labor Day, so, applications will be out soon for vendors, organizations, and always encourage people to kind of share booths, because sometimes it's tough to staff your small organization to staff it all weekend long, so you help. And other activities, and we'll try to do a parade again this year. And, usually after Confest, and things kind of really accelerate the plan. Which is 3 weeks, and people are always looking for volunteers at Goodell Park for the community festival.
What was the first festival you mentioned?
The Hot Times Community Music and Arts Festival. It will be now celebrating its 40th year. In grants, there were artists that moved into the community, and that included musicians. And voila, a party becomes a festival.
Nice. It's 48 years strong with that.
So,
The fifth annual Community Day at Legacy Point is on Saturday, June 28th from 9 to 2 p.m. They're starting with the drum call at 8:45, and then the community walk or run starts at 9:15. There'll be a DJ, free food, kid activities, and over 30 agencies will be participating that. So that I have to.
On June 21st, Juneteenth on the Ave will be taking place, right on Mount Vernon Avenue, from 12 to 5. We're on Mount Vernon from 18th all the way down to, St. Clair, Avenue.
the old Chinese neighborhood,
And the 21st.
oh, yes,
What's the name?
The 21st.
yeah. And then they did set the date for their house tour. And that is, I think, July.
Anything else before we bring up our presenters?
There's a Zora's House Market on Saturday.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, it's, the white one. That right there. Yeah, nope. The other one. Yeah, I got.
Okay, so we have Susan Colbert here from Legal Aid. And, I can move the screen along for you. You can stand up, you can sit there, whatever feels comfortable for you. But
We also have James Mackey, he's an attorney from Legal Aid also, that will be co-presenting.
So come with. It sure has an S. You guys stand up, or you can sit down. I don't care.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll just go ahead and get started.
Yeah.
So, we're from Legal Aid. For those who are not familiar with us, we are a nonprofit law firm, essentially. A lot of folks think of us as basically a civil public defender, because we take all kinds of different civil cases for free for low-income folks. So our primary focus today is going to be foreclosure. But as we get into the presentation, we'll touch on some of the other stuff we do as well.
Another thing I want to, you all should be in possession of a flyer, and it highlights all the other program areas that we, cover. So, it's a kind of review that at your leisure.
I think I may have already covered the next slide too, but. So we are not just in Columbus, we are also partnering with, well, we're now on one organization, we have a bunch of offices, all over Southeast Ohio. We also cover the surrounding central Ohio areas, so we've got a pretty broad reach, anyone in that approximately third of the state, we're pretty much covering that. So like I said, we do a bunch of different areas. We're talking about foreclosure today. I also do, for me personally, I do a bunch of consumer and bankruptcy work. We've got teams that do landlord tenant. We've got teams that do housing or domestic work, and a whole bunch of other smaller areas in between, public benefits, record expungement. Basically, the civil legal area, chances are we've got someone in our office who handles it.
Why we do what we do, basically, legal aid, our goal is to pursue justice and change the lives of Central Ohio and Southeast residents throughout the area. We strive to provide civil legal services. So we don't deal with criminal services or crimes or anything like that. And basically, the purpose of legal aid is to help to overcome unfair and unjust acts, as well as to reduce poverty and increase communities and help improve quality of life of all residents. Why we do it, we want to help families at risk of losing their home, their equity, their legacy, as well as prosperity due to foreclosure. You often hear about, Central Ohio, you hear from tenants and renters about homelessness crises. But some of those families that are affected are homeowners that have lost their homes because of rising property taxes or other reasons. And so as a result, we're trying to help address those issues. Over 1 million Ohioans live in households who spend more than half of their income on rent or mortgage. And really, in order to become financially stable, no more than 30% of your income should go towards housing. And people are being forced to choose between paying their mortgage or their property taxes or eating, buying their medicine or clothes or entertainment, whatever the case may be. And so that's why this foreclosure is a big issue. And this is why we feel the need to get out in the community to let folks know that legal aid is here to help, to be of service and assistance to families. We serve families whose incomes are at or below 200%. And we attempt to help them by offering legal information, by connecting them to resources, as well as representing them if need be in court. And so basically, that's why we do what we do.
And I forgot to mention, this is not a strictly scripted presentation, so if there's something you want us to talk about, please do interrupt, let us know, ask questions. I know the PowerPoint makes us look super prepared, but we're happy to talk about it. So when it comes to foreclosures, there are a lot of different types that we can help folks deal with. Really, are there 6 main areas I would say that we have listed up there. We've got mortgage foreclosures, tax foreclosures, land contract foreclosures, general mortgage company malfeasance, my least favorite, condo and homeowner association foreclosures, and then complicated titles with inherited properties. So as we go through the next slides, we'll kind of go into more details about some of the things we can help with, some of the things we look out for in these different areas.
Do you have like folks that lands, the land contract dispute? What is that?
So a land contract is like an alternative way to buy a house. Essentially, you sometimes hear them called rent to own, where you are in a contract to purchase the house, but it really looks more like your landlord-tenant situation. So you're making payments to the person who still owns it, and at the end of the contract, they transfer the deed to you. The main reason that people do that on the seller side is because they want to move someone in who will fix up the property and then take it back from them. And the main reason to do it on the buyer side is if you can't qualify for a regular traditional mortgage, it's a way to purchase a home. It's fraught with predatory schemes, so it's kind of a dangerous area. But if it works out, it can be good for those who can't qualify. So the most obvious version of foreclosure is the mortgage foreclosure. Someone falls behind on the mortgage company files a foreclosure case. It's the most typical method we see. Options for helping with that kind of foreclosure, because it's a court case, everyone wants to come to us and try to get us to litigate the court case for them. That's an option, it's a possibility, but the reality is in most mortgage foreclosures, you are not gonna have a magic wand that you can wave and say, well, they messed this thing up, so the whole case has to go away and your problem's solved. Because at the end of the day, even if you win a mortgage foreclosure case, you're usually gonna end up right back in the same situation where the case is now dismissed, but you're still behind on the mortgage and the problem isn't really solved. So we tend to look at other options for mortgage foreclosures. A lot of that is where Susan comes in with the resources. So I don't know if you want to talk about some of the resources available that you might be able to help with.
And that's a good point. There are what you call flood-approved housing counseling agencies here in the city of Columbus. You've got Homeport, Ohio. You've got OSU Extension. You've got Homes on the Hill. You also have the Columbus Urban League. These are HUD-approved housing counseling agencies that can be of assistance and service to help families before they even get to that point. Once they get that foreclosure letter in hand, we're trying to be proactive. And so if you find yourself facing some financial difficulties, do not hesitate to call the lender or the financial institution that you have your mortgage with, because they're ready, willing, and able to help you work out something. They call them workout or loss mitigation departments. They don't want your house, they just want their money. And so that's something that most people don't realize, that you have to communicate, you have to talk to them, and you'll be pleasantly surprised how much these financial institutions are ready, willing, and able to work with you. As a matter of fact, just last week, we had a lady, she was days away from having her home go to auction or the sheriff's sale. And she had contacted the mortgage company, and the mortgage company she owed $18,000. And she had contacted some of the agency, and they're like, oh my God, there's nothing we can do, and this, that, and the other. Well, long story short was, we encouraged her to contact the mortgage company. She called the mortgage company put half of that debt on the back end of the loan. So all she was needed to come up with the other half, which we were able to help her connect her to resources and encourage her to reach out to different churches and local groups and this, that, and the other. And then she had already been saving some of that money. Long story short, we were able to save that lady and keep her in her home. Because I don't know about you, but rents are expensive nowadays. In her case, she had a Habitat for Humanity home, and her rent was less than $1,000 a month. So she would have been, crazy to have lost that home, because she couldn't afford the rent. So it worked out perfectly. And so that's why I say, like my mother always said, closed mouth don't get fed. If you have problems, put your pride aside and reach out and contact these HUD-approved housing counseling agencies, or contact legal aid, or whomever, or contact one of you all and say, hey, or you may know a neighbor that might be in this situation. If you hear about somebody, just say, hey, maybe consider calling your mortgage company, talking with them and seeing what they can do, because they don't know what they don't know. And so that's why we, think it's important that you try to be proactive and educate them about the different resources and opportunities and, that are out there available to them. Because most people don't even think about legal aid until it's too late. By the time she got to us, we were just like, lady, we really don't know. It was by grace of God that we were able to help her, figure stuff out and make it happen, but it doesn't necessarily happen like that. So some of these homeless people, unfortunately, you'd be surprised, have been former homeowners, that are in that situation. So if there's anything you can do as a neighbor, I think we're here to just encourage you to help them help themselves.
Yeah, you're good. With the mortgage foreclosure, that loss mitigation is usually gonna be the best option. With the federally backed mortgages, regulations do require them to offer reasonable loss mitigation options. That's gonna look like a forbearance period, or ideally a loan modification. to essentially rewrite that loan, get it back on terms where the homeowner is back on track. It's gonna be the best option if they can come up with a reasonable loan application. Now, sometimes it's just gonna be too far gone, there's not gonna be a reasonable loan modification available. In those cases, as a last ditch effort, we can look at Chapter 13 bankruptcy, which the way to think about it is essentially you are forcing the mortgage company into a 60-month payment plan. Whether they like it or not, they have to take it. So whether that's going to be an option is kind of a math problem, because you kind of got to divide up and figure out what the monthly payment on that payment plan is going to be. It's got to be affordable for the homeowner. But when it works mathematically, it is a great option because the mortgage company just has to take it, whether they like it or not. So it's, like that mortgages. Tax foreclosures, because there's so many loss mitigation options for mortgage foreclosures, I think tax foreclosures are really what we are seeing most often right now in terms of actual filed foreclosure cases. And there's two different types of tax foreclosures. So obviously you don't pay your property taxes. The Franklin County Treasurer is the one that you're going to be dealing with typically on getting those back. And the Franklin County Treasurer has to offer you a reasonable payment plan at least once. Now, if it doesn't work out, they can move forward with that foreclosure, but they're at least required to offer you a reasonable payment plan. So I'm always happy when I hear that the tax foreclosure is still with the Franklin County Treasurer, because the other option is that it's been sold as a private tax certificate to a private company that doesn't care about anything but getting their money out of you as soon as possible. And so they will move forward with foreclosure straight ahead. They do not care about you. And so it's really hard to negotiate with private tax foreclosures. With those, Chapter 13 bankruptcy tends to be a really great option because folks who are dealing with tax foreclosures typically don't owe a mortgage or anything on the home. If they did, the tax would be paid through the mortgage typically. So there's usually not a whole lot that they are going to have to pay in a Chapter 13 bankruptcy because they don't have to worry about paying a mortgage. So when I get private tax foreclosures, or if you hear private tax foreclosures happening, Chapter 13 bankruptcy is typically what people want to think about. I know it's a scary word for a lot of people, but it is a really powerful tool. I just really dislike the private tax certificate companies. They get 18% interest on the tax certificate, which I think is ridiculous, and they do not care about the communities whatsoever. So if it's been sold, you're in a tough position. You really need to consider the bankruptcy for that person. I don't know if you have anything unless you have tax foreclosures.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to mention regarding tax foreclosures is that a lot of folks, unfortunately, aren't aware about the homestead exemptions act or program that exists for folks that are 65 and older, or that might be disabled, or veterans, or spouses of deceased veterans that may be 65, but that's available through Franklin County, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But, please encourage your residents that might be deemed eligible for that program to apply, because they get a discount on their property taxes. And that might help them, in that case.
Yeah, that one and the owner occupied credit, which they should be getting, but sometimes it doesn't get applied. Should be.
So those are like proactive measures, am I understanding?
Most definitely.
Yeah, they should. So they should be happening automatically, but they don't always. Like in a significant amount of time, they don't always. So you can check anyone's parcel on the auditor's website to see if they're getting those credits. And if they're not, they should be contacting the treasurer.
Got it.
Is
Those different credits.
significant amount of money?
It can be. I mean, it's not going to be like half off your taxes, but it can be a couple $100 a year, which for someone who's struggling to make ends meet, that can be a difference maker.
And the different types of credits can be found where? Is it
I'm sorry.
On the Franklin County Auditor's website, if you look at any parcel on the tax section, you can see the full breakdown of taxes. It'll show any credits that they're getting.
Right, but the different types of, like the Homestead Exemption Act, like where can people find a list of those to see if they're eligible?
Yes, I believe it's the Franklin County. If you just put on, it's the Franklin County, Cynthiana, let me see, the auditor.
Yeah.
On the auditor's website. Yes,
Yeah, I think.
Give me your address and I'll look you up.
right.
It's one of my favorite sites to look at.
Oh, I used to go to schools.
I think the tax, like the requirements are laid out in a statute somewhere, which I do not have the citation for, but.
Mhm. Exactly. The other thing too, and I don't know if it comes under tangled title, but it is very important that you understand the importance of having a will. If you don't have a will, you have to protect your investment. And one way you can do that is making sure that it is written out your wishes. God forbid you die, you want to make sure that, you know, your investment is protected and that it goes to your heirs. If you don't have a will and you die, that goes through probate, and then they have to go through all that, and, you know, this, that, and the other. So we try to encourage people to try to get a will or live in trust to make sure that their investment is protected. You work very hard to get this property, and you want to make sure that your wishes are, you know, taken care of after your demise or just, you know, passing in that respect. Yeah, I want to just encourage you about that. You'd be surprised how many folks are walking around here that have property that don't have a will. It just blows me away.
And then on land contracts, we talked a little bit about what a land contract is.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, I'm sorry.
Oh, good.
She just asked me a question. She said, do you just do it on the house?
Because the
No,
other
they
stuff
have-
is very
Right,
complicated.
yeah,
The house
because you have,
is-
feel like you have your power of attorney, you have the health, the medical power of attorney, you have the financial power of attorney. So God forbid you die, you know, you're right, you know, you have to make sure your wishes are documented, or, you know, in that respect, because otherwise, it, you know, and I apologize, because I'm not an attorney, but I am just a human being, a homeowner that understands the importance of having these documents in place. And you have to make sure your affairs are in place, and in order. And the reason why I say that, I'm a widow. Just to give you an example, when my husband died, he had a bank account and I had a bank account. So when he died, I went to his bank and I said, I want the money so I can bury my husband, right? No brainer. I've been married to the man 30 years. You think that the bank would have honored it? But because I didn't have a financial power of attorney, I was not able to access that money. And that was just heartbreaking because I'm just like, wait a minute, it's fine. But because I didn't have a financial power of attorney, that kind of, you know, contributed to why I wasn't able to get that money and move the probate and all this other stuff. It's just, you know, some of this stuff could have been avoided. And so that's why we're here today to tell you there's certain things that you need to do to get your affairs in order, you know. And you're never too young to get your affairs in order because you can walk out here today and get hit by a car and that'll be it. You know what I'm saying? So please, just stay heed in that respect. So I'm sorry, I apologize for belaboring the point or sharing my story, but I just cannot emphasize the importance of having, you know, your affairs in order.
As opposed to if you had passed, you could have access to that.
No, you would have gone through the same thing too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm sorry. We'll be here all night.
So we talked a little bit about what land contracts are, sort of the alternative method of purchasing a home. Land contracts can work a little differently in the foreclosure arena because sometimes you can go straight to eviction instead of foreclosure in a land contract. The rule is that someone needs to pay more than 20% for 5 years of the contract in order to be foreclosure versus eviction. So that's the first hurdle with land contracts. The other hurdle is that a lot of the time, someone will complete a land contract and the seller will be like, man, I really didn't think you were going to make it through all the way. I didn't want to sell it to you for this much. I'm not transferring it to you. We see that happen a lot. And so when that happens, we do assist people with quiet title actions against the seller who's refusing now to transfer the deed. We have had to do a few of those. Those are really annoying because those sellers are just like, you signed the contract, you can't just back out because now your house is worth more than it was when you sold it. That was the deal. So that's something to watch out for. We tend to see those more in rural areas than urban areas, but we do still see them around here sometimes. So we also deal a lot with mortgage errors. I really dislike mortgage servicing companies because I think they are universally terrible at their jobs. I don't know why mortgage companies are worse at math than I am, because I have never studied math, but they are. So there are constantly mortgage errors that you're dealing with. So we do assist people with that. There is a process to contest a mortgage error through what's called a notice of errors, in which you basically just send them a list of your grievances, and they have to do some research, figure out if they really messed it up or not, and fix it. Once they get a notice of errors, they tend to fix things pretty well because they're really afraid of getting sued. But until you send that official notice of errors, they are playing it pretty fast and loose with the mortgage servicing.
Could you give us an example of a mortgage error?
Escrow calculations are wrong all the time. We see payments not processed correctly, not attributed correctly all the time. It's just things like that, just kind of like sloppy accounting. That I wouldn't say is what we see most often. We see things where they're not doing the loss mitigation process properly. They're denying it when they shouldn't. They're not processing it when they should. There's all kinds of different errors. Those are some of the most common ones, I would say.
So I have to verify, like, okay, so they're not adding the escrow properly. What, I guess, information do you use to like measure things, like how do you?
You pretty much have to get a whole payment history of the loan, and figure out what's been paid in, if it's all been properly credited.
Going back
the
to
charts
everything,
make
like,
sense.
okay, really?
Yeah, it's a lot of, like I said, a lot of math, a lot of accounting. But that's kind of how you have to do it.
So how those mistakes happen? I imagine that information is like automated, so there's like, so how does the error like that?
I don't know. I don't know why those systems are so bad at it. I don't know how they're making so many mistakes. It really, because when we do find the mistakes, we're like, how did you make these mistakes? And they're like, I don't know.
We're trying to make it extra blood. Do it, it's good.
Well, sometimes you tried to do it at the bank, and I went to a case where they didn't hear what I was saying, that this is paying the mortgage and this is the extra. It would just kind of show it, but not specifically going to.
You know, I can see how that, in that situation, yeah, I can see how that could definitely, that could be a miscommunication. Yeah. But like most
But
folks
if
now,
they
they're
regularly do
paying
it,
online.
no, it
It's all
doesn't.
digital. Like how are these mistakes happening? It's all digital. It's just,
Yeah, no, there's entire law firms that make their whole living on suing mortgage companies for their mistakes. So it's unfortunately really common.
well, yeah, well, that maybe not a mistake.
Yeah.
It's about a 10.
I will be honest though, we probably get just as many false alarms as real mortgage errors though. I have a lot of clients who think that their mortgage company is messed up and they haven't. It's just that they don't understand something about the way the mortgage is serviced. I have a lot of issues with clients who don't really understand the insurance requirements on a mortgage. They think, like, for example, that if they get their own insurance, that's going to be enough no matter what. And then they'll come to me and be like, well, my mortgage company put their own insurance on it, even though I have my insurance. And I get to the bottom of it eventually, and it's usually something like, well, they wanted me to make the mortgage company the beneficiary on the insurance. And I said, no, it's my house. That's going to be a problem where the mortgage company is going to be able to put insurance on the house in addition to the insurance you already have, because you are required to name it as beneficiary. And a lot of folks may not understand something like that.
Okay.
Well, I just asked them the website and stuff that they came out. Just use.
And then we also deal with a lot of condo and HOA foreclosures. I would say right now, these are also more common for us than mortgage foreclosures, and I hate them. They are the worst. Condo associations and HOAs can do whatever they want in Ohio. There's like no rules against them doing anything. I have, the real problem is that they can charge attorney's fees for everything they do. And so they can charge you a fee, foreclose on it, you're fighting with them, you fight them for a long time, you win, you prove that you were right, and it turns out you gotta pay even more now because you have to pay the attorney's fees even though you won the fight. So the sad truth is with these foreclosures, I usually have to tell people like, look, even if you're right, it's gonna be cheaper for you to just pay what they're saying you owe now rather than fight it, because you're gonna rack up a huge attorney's fees bill that they're, for some reason, allowed to charge you. The good thing is, I don't think we have a ton of condo and HOA associations around here necessarily, but a lot of the rest of Columbus has a ton of them, and they got reversed. So options there tend to be negotiate, and that's, I have to tell the people to negotiate themselves, like not even through us as an attorney, because the second an attorney sends the condo association a letter, then the condo association is gonna use their attorney to do everything in that case, and that's gonna rack up a big bill fast. Chapter 13 bankruptcy is also a really good option for these cases. We do see a lot of them where the homeowner doesn't owe really much house on the foreclosure on the case, on the house, so that payment can be pretty small. That's another thing I hate about these HOA foreclosures, is that they will foreclose over like $3,000, which I just think is messed up. Yeah.
So like I know what foreclosure is, but what is chapter 13?
So chapter 13
Or
bankruptcy,
sorry.
yeah, so you're basically declaring like insolvency. So what it does is you file your case with bankruptcy court, and you're basically laying out all of your debts and all of your assets here income. And in chapter 13, you are creating a 60-month long plan to pay back some or all of those debts.
I didn't realize that was the back.
Mhm. Yeah, so that's what you do in a chapter 13 bankruptcy, and the great advantage of it is that if your plan is acceptable to the court, then nobody cares if it's acceptable for the creditors or not, they have to take it. They do not get a say in it. So that's why it's a great option for some of these different types of foreclosures.
Can you explain the ramifications for future, just like personal finances after you have gone through chapter 13?
Yeah, so when you file a bankruptcy, it's gonna be noted on your credit for 10 years that you filed a bankruptcy. That note is purely for informational purposes. It's not like you have a delinquent account on your credit that keeps dragging the score down. The moment you hit that file button, it is gonna be a hit to a credit score. How big that hit is kind of depends on a whole lot of factors, mostly where the credit score is at now. It's really hard to predict, and credit scores are kind of made up. So it affects an unknown amount, but usually fairly significant. Once you're out of the bankruptcy though, you usually can
Out
build
of the 10 years, not this.
out of
16
the,
months.
once the actual case closes,
Okay.
you can usually build the score back up pretty quickly because you come out of it and all the delinquent accounts stop reporting as delinquent.
Yeah.
So if you just put a couple of positive new accounts on there, you only positive things reporting moving forward, you can build it back up pretty quickly. I usually see folks being able to build it up to like where they can qualify for a mortgage after about 2 years if they're taking all the right steps after the bankruptcy. So that's kind of the ramifications for credit moving forward. A lot of people are hesitant to file bankruptcy because they think it's gonna like ruin their credit. And I'm like, look, you're at the point of considering filing bankruptcy. Is there really any credit to save here? Like a lot of folks are like, oh no, my 450 credit score, I can't file bankruptcy. I'm like, you can either have that 450 forever, or you can give yourself a chance of getting better on filing bankruptcy. Cool.
And like your comment, what does it really mean? Because people who say, I pay cash, I have no credit, I said, that's the one, you have no credit. And that's what people really, you need to open that credit, pay off, and that's how those numbers go up, so. So really,
And then we have tangled title, which you talked about. But yeah, I would just echo it. We see the tangled title. Tangled title is what the term we use for a property that's title is kind of is split up among different heirs. So if you don't have a will in Ohio, the default is that your house is going to go to first your spouse. If your spouse is dead, evenly among your children. If one of those children is dead, evenly among their children. So you can imagine, you can get a lot of owners on a single house pretty fast that way. And we regularly see houses come in that have 10 owners. And it's very difficult to get things done in those situations because all the owners kind of have to act in concert. And they usually do not. So the estate planning is super, super important. And it's something that a lot of people don't take action on until it's too late. Even the simpler tangle title cases where there is a clear heir who's going to be one inheriting the house, we regularly get them coming in when there's already been a foreclosure filed and the house is down in their name yet, and there's no probate case open. For those not familiar with the probate process for property like a home that has a recorded title, to get that property to transfer after a death, you have to open an actual probate case where the estate is administered, so all the assets are officially passed to whoever the heir is. If there's a will, that's simple. If there's not many heirs, that's simple. If there's multiple heirs, that can take quite a while. And it's really difficult to deal with a mortgage foreclosure or any other kind of foreclosure if you are not the title owner of the home. It's not impossible. You can still. There are options. Sometimes you can assume the mortgage. Usually a mortgage company isn't going to turn down money if you have it, even if you're not the one technically owns the home. But it makes things much more complicated. So the wills are super, super important. And there is another option that I think is great too, called the transfer on death deed, where it's set up so that the moment you die, that property automatically transfers to someone else without having to go through the probate process. And for folks who really don't have any other assets than the home, that can be all they need sometimes, if the home is really the only asset that they're going to be passing on. So that's another option, an alternative to a will that may be cheaper, but will is the best thing to have overall for everything else. And legal aid does provide assistance with wills. So low-income folks who need a will done, we do have clinics where we get those done for folks for free. Anything else you have?
No, basically, but I think we pretty much covered that. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned, the clinics. Legal aid has clinics. Like last week, they had a wills clinic, where they had, pro bono attorneys that were present, and families that came, they were able to walk away with a will in hand. So we often have those kind of clinics, there are different types of clinics and stuff like that. And so one of the things that, we'll do is, I think we'll either collect everyone's email address, because I know some of you are, area commissioners, or you're representing constituents and that kind of stuff. Well, Legal Aid has, what we call a community connection newsletter. And it advertises the dates and times of when these clinics are held, or provides valuable information that could benefit you, your families, your church members, your neighbors, and others. And so this is something we'll definitely make sure that you all are kept in the loop about this. Be added to our mailing list so that you can know this information and share it with your social media network and others, so that you can help others help themselves in that respect. Yeah, so basically, like I said, how you can help us, help others, is basically do the following. Help families understand the importance of estate planning and having a will, a living trust, or a power of attorney. Also, as a part of your legacy, like I said, you all work very hard to get your homes, for those of you that are homeowners, and you want to pass that on to your families as a part of your generational wealth building. And so this is something that you can do to help us protect others and protect their rights and understand the responsibilities by helping to promote and market legal aid. It just blows me away how many people don't know about legal aid, and that legal aid even exists. It's like a diamond in the rough. And so that's why we're coming out to communities, centers, churches, meeting with different groups to educate them about what legal aid is, what we can do, and how we can be of service or assistance to help families that are economically, disadvantaged in that respect. Not everybody can afford a will. So as a result, this is a service that we're going to provide. And we have, like I said, a vast array of programs and services that are available to residents, but they just don't know. They don't know if they don't know. And so that's why we're coming to you all to help us get the word out and encourage people to, utilize our services. Go to our website. We have an awesome website. A lot of stuff, resources that are available are listed there. You know, oftentimes people, we talked about people, homes that are foreclosed on. They don't realize once, like for example, if your home is foreclosed on for property taxes, once the county, the state, the city gets their taxes, there might be money still left on the table from your equity in the property. Although you don't own a home, you're still entitled to that money. And so people don't know that. And so if you go to a website called unclaimedfundsohio.gov, put your name and your zip code in there, you'll be able to see, you know, if money is due you know, and anybody can do that, whether it's property or whatever. But that's a website that most people don't even know existed, you know, so definitely.
And do it before the Senate.
I'm-
And do it before the Senate used to fund the new Brown Stadium.
Right, exactly. That's true, you know.
They do need this.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, so there's opportunities there in that respect, but those are, the next screen. Yeah, so these are ways that you can help us help others. Encourage service providers and community leaders to attend or host or sponsor a workshop like this so that, you know, representatives from legal aid can come. Like, for example, James, I put the call out and James would immediately say, hey, that's my neighborhood, I'm coming, I'll be there. You know, and so we may not be able to get James to come to all the meetings. You might just be stuck with me, but whatever the case may be, we, you know, invite us to come and so that we can educate you about these programs, resources, and services that we offer. The other thing is invite us to come and do presentations. We have webinars. If you have a Facebook Live, or if you have events, or like you all went listed at the beginning of the meeting, the different events and functions. Don't be surprised if you see legal aid posted up there. Thanks to y'all, because we heard about it, and then we're there to educate people about the resources that we offer. Offer to host a community clinic for area residents. You know, like for example, they hosted the last Will clinic was hosted at the Reed Avenue Community Center in their basement. You know, and the attorney showed up there and stuff like that. Post our information in your newsletters, on your social media, your websites, and that kind of stuff. Even when I went over to the library, some lady said we should do a TikTok or something like that. Whatever that is, I don't know. Whatever we can do, you know, I don't know. But anyways, I mean, just, they have all kind of great ideas. Oh, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? I'm like, oh, okay, so here I just switched over to an iPhone. 6 months ago, I had a what you call flip phone, so you got like bear with me. I can't wait to get that. But anyways, these are some things that you can do to help us. And then, in conclusion, I think the next screen. He's gonna feel fired. This is our contact information, and like I said, we thank you for taking time and making it a priority to hear us out, allow us to share our information and our resources. And like I said, please consider us a valued resource. We're neighbors. We're located at 1108 City Park near Thurman, off of Thurman, and you know, we're here to serve you. So I don't know, I'll leave you with the last word.
That was a good closing message. And, so thank you all so much.
So do you have other offices besides what's in Columbus?
Yeah, we have like.
It's on the back of the handout. There are 8 offices.
Does legal aid have full 100% full-time attorneys?
But
Like,
if not, please share.
Yeah, we have like.
We have plenty, okay.
really?
For the pool, that's just for the our part of the Ohio. There's different legal aids that serve the rest of Ohio.
Okay.
So central and southeast is what we
But
probably
you
have.
don't partner with other, that was the program through legal aid, you have to partner with other attorneys, right? Or no, you guys strictly do legal aid attorneys?
So we did a lot of private attorney volunteers. So we work a ton with the private bar to have them take pro bono cases.
Right.
So basically, any pro bono.
But yeah, so I figured out, I assumed that was how all the work was stuff. I didn't realize you guys also had a team, so that's pretty.
Yeah, we've gotten pretty big. A lot of attorneys now.
Where's the funding come from?
So we get a third of our funding from the federal government, which hopefully will continue.
Right.
We get a lot of funding, all of the interest on private lawyers' trust accounts goes to us. And then we get a lot of just private grants, donations.
How did it work out with the interest on their pilot account?
This is just the statute, that's what they have to do. I don't know. I think
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. But that's where our money is.
I guess it makes sense. Your own money would go into like this, the law, authority, and doesn't necessarily, I guess, belong to the state, so let's allocate these things to the program. That makes sense.
I have a question. So could, a person receive multiple, legal services from legal aid at once?
Yeah, we have tons of people with multiple cases open at once, so different attorneys. A lot of repeat customers.
Because you all have case managers too, right?
So we don't have really case managers. We have one full-time social worker who is the busiest man on earth. But we don't have like case management services.
Yeah, I think he's actually been here.
Well, the nicest man you've ever met. Like,
Yes.
that would yeah.
Oh,
Anyone have any other questions for them?
For people who don't meet the requirements, it's sort of 200%, but yeah, work with others, any sort of firms, or how do they have the system, or do they have to pay on state?
Yeah, so we are really strictly limited by our federal funding on that income limit. So our hands are pretty tied. There are a few like random grants that can allow us to make some rare exceptions, but no one should call it expecting one of those exceptions. We can typically recommend some private attorneys in different areas, but they would have to pay the full private price. There isn't, unfortunately, any like discount we can get that if they're over our
Folks has a lot of non-English immigrants. Do you provide services like to the Ethiopian and Hispanic communities?
Yes, but a huge percentage of our clients are non-English speaking. And so we have translation services we use. We have pretty diverse staff in terms of languages that some folks speak. We have a large Haitian client population, and we have an attorney who speaks fluent Haitian Creole. We have a very large Somali client population. We do have staff members who speak fluent Somali. So yeah, any language. I've learned languages I've never heard of working at this job. And we're always able to find translation services and very easy to be able to serve those clients.
That about legal status, or like, as long as I have a mortgage, it's under the service they qualify, or?
So the federal funding also puts a very strict rule on us for legal status. The client has to have some form of legal status. They don't necessarily have to be a citizen or even have a green card necessarily. There are lots of different statuses we can accept. It's very complicated. I don't understand all of those rules, but some people in our office do, and I always go with that. But if the client does not have any legal status whatsoever, we are strictly prohibited from assisting them, unfortunately.
Thank you both again for being here. We really appreciate it. And I love that you both live in the next minute.
thank you for having us.
What's your best on the variety with health?
About 61 Madison, so between Sherman and Wilson.
Sitting on your porch when you get home.
It's deep in the throes of the tear off right now. Yeah.
I just have another question.
Yeah.
So with the, when it was on the slide in regard to hosting a clinic, could a clinic, be for any of these services?
Yeah, most of the clinics are going to be general free device clinics,
Okay.
so they kind of cover whatever the client wants in. We have a few specific clinics But most of them are general advice things. If you're interested in trying to post on those somewhere, that can have work for those and person to reach out to, I don't know if her contact is currently on there. It is. But we are kind of having trouble staffing those clinics right now because we're kind of not hiring right now and losing some staff just due to the uncertainty of federal funding going around right now. So we will try to staff it, but it's a little tough to find staff for some of them right now, just because we have so many.
So I think you tend to work closely with the other attorneys in the different areas.
Yeah, we all try to stay fairly well up to date. But I'm not so well versed in their other areas that I necessarily know how to answer everybody's questions.
Is there anything else, in regards to the community, any other events coming up for anyone that they would like to share?
Have you ever done a clinic in the area side?
Probably. I don't know off the top of my head where it would have been, but we have a lot of them all around the city. So I would imagine that there's been one. The clinic location list
In
is.
this area?
I don't know
Is
where
it-
it
it's
is.
about 2 3. You have some suggestions? You have place in mind?
I'm thinking, I'm in District 1, which is north of Broad all the way to 6070. And I'm thinking of having a clinic in this area would be very helpful to many residents. Especially those residents who are dealing with property tax issues that may feel slightly trapped. So I think it might be a nice offering from the Air Commission to have.
We talked about District 2 garbage requesting.
Yeah.
Yes, so that's part of my current.
We're all north of Broad, so yeah.
So we're gonna be, that's part of it. It was financial fees and then it was like bringing it to.
Yeah. Maybe we could do a kind of combination of this with 1 and 2.
I'm not sure, Nathan, I'm not quite sure if Jill or Casey sent that information to you yet, but that we're finalizing that.
Okay.
Or Dr. Kara, so.
Well,
It's the urban and urban aging resident color. Yeah.
Anyone remember?
Yeah. What, how often do you
It's always the last. And they moved over to the community health center. And everything, that's one thing is I really encourage people to, look at the scheduling for community health center. They have a lot of classes and recession, a lot of cooking classes, and just a lot of variety of things. And if you haven't seen the Free Ryan Center, it's very cool too. And they're slow, right there. They don't want to screw up. They're really very slow.
Cars in the parking lot.
But they do food for people, anyone who's not, it is a age related, not necessarily an income related, or you can get lunches Monday, Wednesday, Friday
Where at?
at the Grand Ryan Center.
Where's that?
That is what used to be Douglas School, right behind BP State, where the BP gas station is.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
They kind of do.
I thought that was like in, for, yeah, it's those things, right, it's age related, right? Yeah. older.
It is strangely kind of age, but very specifically more about subject to.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Well, it is, some of it is very age related,
Okay.
like the shop there is, maybe you have the elder artist.
Right,
to work in, and a lot of the studios, but I don't think it's necessarily age that take classes.
Okay.
And then they have a workout area, which they don't seem to be restricted on that age. You can kind of make it your own little private workout
I
area.
go by there, I've seen it, and yeah, they got it up pretty quickly, but I've yet to go in there, I'm not even.
And they hope to be doing some more, I just made the other performance there last week. It was.
Where's the parking lot at? Is part of it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they do.
Where
Floyd Dale.
Behind it?
Well, it's, when you go in the main door, it's the parking lot.
The parking
I
lot.
always came from Broad Street, to me, that's where we get.
Oh, that's
You're
right.
gonna have to go down, what is it, 17th? And then
It's
Capitol.
18, it's actually on 18, Capitol, Douglas, and what's the other?
Monroe.
Monroe, yeah, so that's, I've noticed that, I always thought that Douglas was overly addressed for the school. But now it's Capitol.
Hmm.
So,
Good to know, good to know. Stop by.
and actually, there is a, individual from the neighborhood, Bill Wells, who is trying to put up a mural of, love, a love mural. And it's, they've happened in different places, and so people would actually, I'm not sure if they do big tiles together, if they support a tile or whatever, but it is something that he's been kind of, or been working on in general before the building was ever built. He really wanted to do it in different places. Now it's what we do it, Grand Line, trying to do it on the outside there. Maybe on the inside or the outside, on the
And that's
inside.
where Otina meets.
Oh, it's really, okay.
Yeah.
They do. Mhm. Yes.
It's like it popped up one day, I was getting gas, and the gas was, what is that there? When we put that there, it was,
They plan.
Like,
to do
really,
some
whatever
outdoor
was there.
stuff. They plan to do some outdoor. things that-
well, I live right there, I don't Broad Street, so. Right by the house.
Yeah.
Oh, you will? Okay.
I hope it encourages the company, whoever owns that parking lot, that fenced up lot.
Mm.
Catty corner from the.
Right.
Grand Line,
Yeah.
you know, and I have an actual, you know, if you live here long enough, you just get mad at people who consistently do these things. But when we had a festival over there in Douglas, they were totally rude and would not cooperate at all.
Really, was
And
that?
it's a nonprofit, you know, nonprofit, but it just really makes me mad when they just
Right,
sit on their own.
right, yeah.
As they say, they were waiting for the fat lady to sing, and they say to them, you are the fat lady. You have to sing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's always best to be collaborative, get farther with the
It has
money,
to be
and then pretty
collaborative.
right.
And unfortunately, we all know, we have a lot of people who don't live in our neighborhoods and have properties, and don't come drive by them very often.
Oh, yeah, that's the house right next door to mine. I call the city probably once a year, like, the grass again,
It was nice to hear that again, the city is knowing they need to be doing a registration of all rental properties, and they're now still thinking about how to start. It's really fixed that. It's taking so long to work. I just think it could be on the like, and just send your neighbors around to see if anybody's living there.
Right.
Like the night before. Everybody so appreciated, you know, they really are the eyes were, you know.
Right.